So in our Culture Wars segment today, I want to talk about immigration. And this is something that is consistently plaguing our country. And when Trump ran the first time, that was one of the pillars of his messaging was immigration. And a lot of people over the years have asked me what my experience was. And as you all know, it took me 18 years to become a citizen. But I think a lot of people don't truly understand the process and how it takes some people 18 years, or how for some people it's easier, and then also kind of what are my feelings about illegal immigration, and maybe whether I have any proposals for how to solve that. And so let's jump into that. So when I came to America in 2003. I came to America as a religious worker. And so one thing you need to know about an immigration system is there are two main parts. One is a non-immigrant process, and then the other part is an immigrant process. So just because you come to America does not mean that you are allowed to stay here permanently. It does not mean that you're allowed to even apply for citizenship. It's not like that. When you come into the country, you are either coming in as a non-immigrant or as an immigrant. And what that means is you have to promise that you would return if you're a non-immigrant. And you have to prove to the people who interview you that you have resources and you have, ties to your home country such that you're going to return. On the other hand, if you're coming here as an immigrant, that's a little different. And that process usually sets you on a path to citizenship. So that's the main difference, and I think a lot of people don't realize that that is the case. So I came here on a non-immigrant path, which means that there was no real path to citizenship for me until I was able to transition from there to an immigrant path. And so when I talk about my 18 years, it wasn't like I got into America and I said, hey, I want to be a citizen today. And they said, well, it's going to take you 18 years to become a citizen. That's not how it started. Actually, the process of going through the immigrant process actually took only 10 years. However, the first 8 years, I was a non-immigrant, and I had to go through the process and the steps to get to the point where I could begin my transition to an immigrant. Okay, so it's a little bit complicated, but I'll summarize it in this way. Okay, I got here, I went to school, and then once I was done with school, I was hired by a company. Usually, for most people, to get on a path to citizenship, you either have to be sponsored by a company or you could marry an American. So if you've seen those shows, 90 Day Fiancé and so on and so forth on TLC, if you marry an American, that's the fastest path to getting on the immigrant path, as long as the marriage is legal. On the other hand, for most people like me, it's through employment. And so you hope to find a company that's willing to sponsor you. I was lucky, and eventually I was able to find a company to sponsor me into 2013. And it is through that process that I was able to get my green card 2 years later, which came in 2015. So from 2003, when I got here, all the way to 2013, I had no path to citizenship. There was no means for me to actually begin the process of applying for citizenship. And so in 2013, I was able to do that. I got my green card in 2015. And then after that, I was able to wait 5 years. So once you get your green card, you have to wait 5 years. So I was able to wait 5 years. And then once that happened, I could apply for citizenship. And then COVID hit. And so I was delayed for another year. And so it ended up being 18 years instead of 17 from the time I entered the country. So I am not necessarily bitter about the process per se. I think when I think about it, I am privileged that it finally happened for me. My brother came to America as well, and he married an American. So his path was much faster than my path. And so he became American much, much sooner than I did. However, when I think about the process, I know that there's a lot that can be done to streamline it. And I think one of the things, for instance, is the fact that I was educated here. I got my bachelor's and master's here. And I think one of the proposals in the past was that if someone comes from America and gets educated here and it gains all these skills here, why do you then, send them off back to their own country so that they can go compete against us? Right? It doesn't make any sense. And so maybe if there is a process that says, hey, you're educated here and you obey the law while you're here, you don't, you follow the rules, then we're going to give you a path to citizenship, whether you have a sponsor or not, right? Maybe that's something that could be done. But I also understand the concerns of people who say, hey, is this going to depress our wages? Is this going to, affect Americans? And I understand that, and I'm not going to dismiss that at all. I think it makes sense for any country to be able to say, hey, how many immigrants are we admitting here? And how does it affect our own people who are born here? And so I think there's nothing wrong with thinking of America first, even as you think about immigration. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do understand that there are a lot of immigrants and there's so much that they can bring to this society, and they've already done that. Our country is built on immigrants. And so I think the way we look at it is from a pragmatic standpoint to say, okay, what is best for America? And what types of immigrants can really elevate America and help us kind of continue to win this global battle of, technological dominance and, and so on and so forth. I think that's where the focus should be. So when I think about my journey, you never hear me say negative things about that process. I just say it took 18 years, but I'm happy that I'm here today where I am, and I'm not bitter about it. Now, if there is any part of that process that bothers a lot of legal immigrants like me, it is the illegal part of immigration. Because as a legal immigrant, one of the things that I lived under for the most part was the fact that I had to make sure that I was not in trouble with the law at any point. Because as soon as you got in trouble with the law, you would immediately be put on a path to deportation. And not only that, I could also not afford to lose my job. Because if I lost my job, I don't know if you know this, but if you have a work visa and you lose your job, your employer gives you a one-way ticket with your last paycheck back to your country. So imagine losing your job. You have a home in the US, you have kids who are American, and you lose your job. And within 24 hours, you have to leave the country. For me, I came here when I was 19. So I never grew up as an adult in my country. I never built anything. I never had a job in my country outside of working for my parents. And so I don't have any professional connections set up. I don't have anything. So going back to my country basically starts me at the bottom of the economic ladder. I basically have to start all over and work my way back up. And I don't even know what opportunities are available to me because I never lived there. And so for me, it was important not only to obey all the laws, but also make sure that I wasn't in a position to lose my job. And because of that, I was restricted from what I could do in terms of employment. You were limited to working in the area of your study. And so that was something that I had to deal with. So when I compare that to illegal immigration, this is how I feel. Illegal immigrants have much more freedom than people who are here legally, right? Because when you come here illegally, there's no determination around what you can do for work. As long as you found somebody willing to pay you under the table, or you found somebody's fake social security number, or you through some kind of identity theft process, you got some identity that allowed you to work, then there were no restrictions. And so I was here thinking, well, I can't take this job because that means I'll have to restart the entire process. But the illegal immigrant can go do anything they wanted because there was nobody tracking any of that. And so that was one thing that I felt was unfair, because there were moments in my life where I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to start my own company, but the rules did not allow me to do so. Think about it. And so that's one part that I think is a little unfair in the process. And then number two, I think the way I describe it is this. What is our goal as a country with respect to immigration? Is our goal just to bring people here for economic opportunity? Or is our goal to invite people here who want to become part of our society, who want to understand our principles and values, who want to assimilate, who want to build a social fabric that is cohesive? Is that our goal? Or are we just bringing people to come and cash a paycheck? Right? And I think that's something we need to determine. What is the purpose of our immigration system? And the challenge that I see is a lot of these people who are coming here, by virtue of breaking the law to get here, you have, I would say, poked a hole in the social fabric already. Because law breaking breaks down our society. And so if you come here and you break the law and you get here, and then we say to you, oh, well, you broke the law, that's, water under the bridge, now let's make you legal. I think it's almost like, the way I look at it is like going to the store, having my child, grab something they didn't pay for, put it in their pocket. And then when I come home, I see that they had something they didn't pay for. And then I say, hey, you know what? That was not good. You shouldn't have done that. But you already got it. Just don't do it again. You can keep this one, but don't do it again. What message will I be sending to that kid? Right? And so for me, I feel like when people are coming to our country, we expect them to understand that this is a place where there's rule of law. And you can't come here illegally and expect to have the protections of the rule of law. A lot of these people are fleeing countries where the rule of law did not exist. And so we need to communicate to them that you don't want to basically rebuild the same system you're running away from. If we allow you to come here illegally, then you are basically recreating the system of corruption that you are fleeing from. And so I think if someone were to ask me for my advice on illegal immigration, this is what I'll say. I'll say there needs to be a law passed that basically says something like this. If you come to America illegally, you will never have a path to citizenship. We will never allow you to keep the thing you took illegally. Okay? You will never have a path to citizenship. So if your goal is to become American and your goal is to have the ability to thrive in this country and not live in the shadows, you have to come here legally. And for those who are already here, you have to say to them, yes, you have taken something that did not belong to you, something that so many other people are waiting in line right now to get. And so, unfortunately, the only way you can rectify this process is to go back and return legally. And I know that's going to be hard for some people, but you have to, because we can't let you keep the thing you took. Because that creates a precedent that goes against everything we stand for as a country. And so I get that. And I think there can be, in reasonable terms, some exception for like children who were brought here where they didn't make their own conscious effort to break the law. It was their parents. So I can understand that those people, we can carve out an exception for people like that and say, okay, you did come here illegally, but we're not going to hold the child, the minor child, responsible for the sins of their parents. Okay? So in that case, you could make an exception, and I'm okay with that. Even as a legal immigrant, I think, and I've spoken to a lot of legal immigrants who understand that as well, who say, look, that doesn't bother me as much because these kids did not make that choice themselves. Okay? But for the adults, we can't reward law breaking. That's something we can't do because we end up, in the end, what is the difference between America and the country I came from? Like, what would be the difference then? If you can just sneak in, break the law, and then just wait, in the shadows until some politician promises to make you legal in exchange for your vote. And basically, that's the bargain that is being given right now. Is, hey, we'll make you legal. So in 13 years, 14 years, you remember us so you can vote for us. That's the bottom line. And so that's my feeling about illegal immigration. I think immigrants definitely do provide a lot of culture, a lot of, they bring with them a lot of things that I think helps our society, and I love that. When I lived in Los Angeles, every time I would meet somebody from a different country, I would write down the country, and I met people, by the time I was there for 2 years, I had met people from 50 different countries, and I thought that is amazing. I thought, isn't that special, right? Isn't that special that we can create a society that can allow people from all walks of life to be able to thrive, to come with all their backgrounds, their diversity, their, views on different things and still be able to coexist in a peaceful way. I think that is special. That is really special about America. But I think the most important thing is the rule of law, because none of that is going to matter if our laws are not followed. And that's my thought on that. All right, so I know some of you may have questions that you want to ask about this process and everything. So if you have any questions, you can email me at contactus@restitchamerica.com. Contact us at restitchamerica.com. Please, if you're not following me right now, please go and follow me on social media. And then also, please subscribe to this podcast and share it with your friends and family if you have not already done that. Thank you for your current support, and we hope that we can grow this audience to make it even bigger.